Dear listener, hello. I am on the banks of the Thames, which my guest has just described as nowhere near as good as Sydney Harbour. Ben Cooper, coming up next. Hello, Ben.
Now your audience all hate me, so that's great. Thanks for that opener. Look, you've got the Thames, where the Oxford and Cambridge, boat race is going to take place in a couple of weeks' time on a bright, sunny, cloudless day. You've got a good day in London.
It is a very good. I've had a good couple of days in London, actually. Cheers.
Cheers.
We'll have a little
Welcome
toast.
to the Black Lion pub on the banks of the River Thames in Hammersmith.
I could think of nowhere better, to be honest. A beautiful, sunny London day. And it's great to get away from Kyle and Jackie. Have you been following it?
God, yeah, of course. It's the biggest story in radio, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think that contract made everyone sit up. And of course, anything to do with that contract, going awry, everyone's interested, aren't they?
Yeah.
So you've been a busy man. So the first thing I want to do is ask you, what's the latest?
Well, you've just seen me scull a beer in about 6 seconds, so you can do it. Well, the latest, as we record this, is that Kyle's not happy. He's not going to get his job back. I think he thinks he might get his job back, but he won't now. Or both contracts are terminated, so that's the end of that.
Wow.
And ARN are going down the path of hiring new talent for their Sydney and Melbourne breakfast shows. So I think that experiment of big names networked in breakfast in Australia is over. Christian's had a rough start into Sydney, Christian O'Connell, which was probably always going to be the case. It's the kind of thing, though, pressure on him. If anyone can turn it around, he can.
Yeah,
so
he's a grafter.
Yeah, we'll watch this space, I think, with him. But have you ever had anything similar in the UK to what we just had?
I think Chris Evans on Radio 1 with Matthew Bannister, who was the then controller of Radio 1, they fell out big time. They were famously photographed on a pub bench like this one by the tabloids. It was all set up and pre-arranged with the photographers, but it was called the £1 Million Cup of Tea. And it was Matthew Bannister and Chris Evans agreeing that Chris Evans would come and do the breakfast show at Radio 1.
Right.
Which was the biggest gig in UK radio at the time.
Yeah, which era are we talking here?
So this is mid-90s.
Mid-90s, okay.
Yeah, so you've got all of Britpop kicking off, you've got Oasis and Blur, you've got England actually doing well in the football for once. So it was a big moment. And again, a bit like, the situation you've got down under is you've got a huge contract, big financial contract that grabs everyone's attention. But of course, with that comes the pressure of delivering, and that obviously it's well recorded. But Chris asked for Fridays off because he wanted to do his TV show, TFI, and Matthew said no, and so Chris walked, and it imploded. And it's fascinating. You've had a couple of guests on your podcast about sort of talent management. And this idea of just when the money gets bigger and the press gets bigger and the audiences get bigger, the pressure gets bigger.
Yeah.
And how do you manage that relationship between management and talent? It will always be a good conversation.
Yeah. In terms of your career working with talent, because your career particularly through the BBC era, and I think for people who haven't been to the UK or don't know the radio scene here, it's almost impossible to understand how the BBC is pretty much half the market. Because in most places it's a public broadcaster, and there's not many of them, but they're nowhere near that. So all of the talent that would have been through the BBC are pretty much the household names across the whole industry.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct, because you've got Jordan and Chris who do Capital Breakfast Show. They came from Radio 1. Yep. You've got Jamie Theakston on Heart. He came from Radio 1. You've got Chris Evans, who came from Radio 1. You've got Grimmy on Six Music, who came from Radio 1. Yep. And you've got Scott Mills on Radio 2, who came from Radio 1. So, yeah, it was... I like to think it's the training ground. It's the place to cut your teeth and learn your craft, and then go on to the rest of the industry and benefit the rest of the industry as well.
It must be pleasing when you see talent that love radio. I mean, a criticism of Kyle and Jackie O, particularly Kyle, which I think is a fair sledge at him, is that he got the contract, got the money, and then was the care for the medium and the industry still there. So many people lost their jobs. His attitude, and look, there's a part of him which obviously is the character of Kyle and the persona of Kyle, but I still think that's pretty close with him. is that there was a factor of I don't care about everyone else. I've got the money, and I'll be fine. But then I listened this week and I hear Greg James, who's just ridden 1,000 kilometres for charity, and all along the way, what you hear is Greg talking about his love of radio, and you've worked with Greg and know him well.
Yeah.
If there was ever a poster boy for loving radio, isn't it? It's Greg, isn't it?
I remember I gave him his first ever contract at Radio 1, gave him his first show, Early Breakfast.
Right. How old was he at the time?
I think he had the choice of going on and doing a couple of deps for me, or going to his graduation ball.
Oh, wow.
And he chose
I
Radio
would
1.
have chosen it.
So, that shows you his love for radio right from the off.
Yeah.
But I think you're right, because with Chris Evans, going back to Chris Evans, he had something that was very unique when he did Breakfast Show on Radio 1, which was his own production company.
Yeah.
And so they didn't feel like they were part of the station.
So the production company produced it for Radio 1?
Radio 1.
Right.
And when the show finished, they all upped out of the building and went across the road to their own office and weren't part of the station.
Right.
I think the thing that I was very keen to do with Radio 1 when I was there, and I think Greg is a product of this, is to make a station feel like a family, make it feel like a soap opera.
Yep.
You've got to talk about each other, you've got to enjoy each other's shows, you've got to, share drive, if you want to bring it down to its nuts and bolts, to each other's shows. And I think Greg's fantastic effort this week. For those of you who don't know, he's just raised over £4 million for charity by doing a bike race or a bike ride from the south of the country all the way up to Scotland. I think it's 1,000 kilometres.
Yeah. Amazing.
And the audience coming out and clapping him and supporting him and donating, etc. But as you say, part of that just him talking about the community of his listeners. And I think every radio station needs to remember that, of being, a community. You are a collective of your audience and yourselves and the team. And the moment you take your audience for granted,
no,
you're out.
You're out. Yeah, they're out or you're out, one of the two.
Definitely.
So in terms of working with talent then, I mean, what I try and do, I guess, with this pod is, it's an inside industry pod, it's not for everyone.
Yeah.
So we can talk technical and we can talk industry lingo. When you're thinking about working with talent now, and you think about what's just happened with Kyle and Jackie O, what are some lessons that you can see out of that scenario? So we talked about the contract, we talked about being part of the team, but what about the personalities themselves? Do you think there's anything that if you're now working with a show, you'd go, you know what we might need to keep check on is X?
Yeah. I think, first of all, I think there's a great difference between a situation where you have grown up with your talent.
Yep.
If you've grown up, so I produced Chris Moyles before I was his boss.
Right.
With Greg James, we grew up sort of me learning my way in management, his way learning, the faders and the audience of Radio 1. There's a big difference, because that means you're sort of you're in the same peer group, and you've got that ability to just sort of go, oh come on, let's just go to the pub and have a pint and just let's sort this out. What's going on?
Yeah.
I think
but before that though, are you feeling like there's an alignment on the mission? Like in order to have that conversation?
Yeah.
Because let's just say with Kyle and Jackie O, the show was an island within the building, and that's their production companies and that. But I never got the sense from that show that the whole team would get together socially. It always felt like there was Kyle had his own life, Jackie had her own life, and maybe the production team were a team.
Yeah.
But I think of the successful shows, Hamish and Andy, it was always 50% on air and 50% off air. Hamish and Andy were the instigators of the come on, let's all go bowling or go to the movies or whatever. I think of Greg, and he knows everyone. You can tell he knows everyone's life behind the glass really well. You can just hear it in his voice. And I just don't know if that was there, that alignment piece to the start. They're all there for different reasons.
What is it? The family that plays together stays together, sort of thing. And it is exactly that with, when I came, one of the lessons I learned from working at Capital Radio in the commercial sector in the UK was that getting the presenters together. Because often, in some radio stations, you see the one presenter before you and you see the one 3 hours later after you.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah, or you work in a station now, it doesn't have a building anymore. You're broadcasting from home or wherever.
Yeah, and recording it in your bedroom sort of thing. So that idea of, God, it was awkward. The first time we got all of the presenters together in a pub was so awkward, and it was like a school kind of classroom with the cool kids at the back who didn't take their coats off and had their arms folded.
Their breakfast.
And who didn't really want to say anything, or would say the sarky comment, or be a bit rude, or and then sort of the newest presenters would be at the front
With a notebook.
with a notebook, going, right, okay, what am I going to do?
What can I learn here? Yeah,
What's the clock again?
Yeah.
And then you'd have the person who was actually painfully shy in a social situation, amazing on air, but socially really, really not saying a thing in the corner. So it was difficult, but you persevere and you make it a regular occurrence. So I think we did it once every sort of quarter. We used RAJAR as our listening mechanism, ratings mechanism, as it's coming out. Right, let's talk about what we've learned from RAJAR.
Right.
Get everyone together, and that means that you get your dance DJ on a Friday night talking to your breakfast show, or you get your drum and bass presenter who broadcasts in the middle of the night talking to the mid-morning presenter,
Right.
and they have that soap opera again. They can
Yeah.
then talk about it on air. So that is so important, because I think what you've just described there is splendid isolation. If a show gets into splendid isolation, it spends too much time worried about the dynamics and the politics of its own show.
Yeah.
And that's never a healthy place to be.
No. It's interesting to me to watch the Kyle and Jackie audience fallout. So what we have seen is that they were, and this is easy to forget in this whole mess, is they leave being number one
Yep.
FM, not number one AM overall, but number one FM. Their weekly cume in Sydney was about 630 odd thousand weekly reach. So there's a huge amount of audience that now is just going to disperse because they haven't got a replacement yet.
Yep.
As we sit here today, they're going to go in different directions, but that audience is craving them. And I can't think what the Simpsons quote is. I'm quoting a lot of Simpsons and stuff like that. I don't know why, but my kids are just getting into the Simpsons. I
Right.
think that's what's going on. I'm reliving.
Yeah.
It's sort of like, won't someone think of the children? It's won't someone think of the audience? Because the Kyle and Jackie O debacle, everyone's talking about Kyle. Jackie had her reasons, the production team, but the audience are the most important part, you'd assume. And I'm just wondering if the company or Kyle and Jackie O themselves have thought this through, because now they're leaving a lifelong audience nowhere.
So what that makes me remember and think about is a phrase that we had at Radio 1, especially after the Evans years, which was no one presenter is bigger than the station.
Yep.
Make it so that you know what your succession plan is.
Yeah.
And make sure that when your breakfast show with its biggest presenters go on holiday, that you've got that person and you've got that continuity of that person building that relationship with the audience. So
Yeah.
the audience loves the soap opera of the station, loves the music of the stations, loves the editorial, the creativity you've got. Yeah, they've got their favourite, stars on breakfast, but when they go, it doesn't matter because the next generation are coming through.
Already there.
And you've got that audience that actually, especially in the UK, I know what it's like in Australia, we love the underdog.
Yep.
And so
Same.
actually, when the underdog's depping for breakfast, actually you find quite a loyal audience there of going, oh yeah, well when they go, I hope my guy gets it.
Yeah. They pick a team.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, amazing. Thanks for joining me for a short 15-minute beer by the Thames. You can take back that comment about Sydney Harbour if you like. I can...
I've been to Sydney Harbour. It is beautiful. You have the most amazing fireworks every year that blows everyone else around the world out of the water. Every time it comes around on the news on New Year's Eve, we always see Sydney Harbour with the fireworks every year, just reminding me of my trip to Sydney and what a fantastic time it was. So don't try and make me unpopular with your audience by saying that I said that the Thames was better than Sydney Harbour.
Completely stitched you up there. In terms of people working with you, so you work in the consulting space now, after many decades of being in the firing line, but I'd imagine a lot of the stuff that you do now, you'd be helping a lot of stations both with strategy, AI adoption, I know you're really interested in at the moment, but also working with talent. I think that's something that, I wouldn't say it's a lost art, but with the amount of programmers, particularly in Australia, reducing, there's just not those people on the ground anymore, and I just wonder if someone like you could be helping that.
I definitely love working with presenters. I think I remember being a very bad presenter myself, and that fear of 30 seconds left on before you open the microphone and going, where are we going now?
Yep.
Where are we going next? But also, I think a lot of, certainly when I was growing up through the industry, I remember management being very patronising towards presenters.
Right.
The worst phrase I remember hearing is, "Oh, they're just like naughty school kids," and you go, "No, they're not. They're putting their head above the parapet to be judged every time they open the microphone."
Yeah.
And they're giving of themselves and giving of their lives and asking people to go, is that funny? Is it interesting? You know, do I like this?
Yeah.
So I've always respected presenters and always loved working with them. I think the joy that I get at the moment through consultancy is putting a bit of that, I think some managers are scared to go, do you know what? You're bloody brilliant. Well
Yeah,
done.
right. Scared of the affirmation, almost.
Yeah, because they think the power dynamic then shifts.
Ah, okay, right.
And you're like,
Wow.
no, as long as you do the praise, but then you also give the correct feedback.
Yeah,
and you
well, it's
say,
coaching, right?
Yeah,
It's
proper coaching.
Yeah, we want to encourage you, but we also want to help you work on some stuff.
Exactly. So that's what I've really loved working in the last couple of consultancy gigs I've done, is just putting that energy and that momentum and that can do and that you can win.
Yeah.
You can win audiences.
Yeah.
This is not managing decline. You can get into the marketplace and you can win new audiences. And that's what I love doing. That's what I love doing. Getting in a room with people, with a team, and going, right, how do we win new audiences?
Great. Well, people can find you on LinkedIn, Ben Cooper.
Ben Cooper Media, if you search me on LinkedIn. And yeah.
All right. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks for coming along. Thanks for having me in your fair city.